Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I am your host, Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and I'm here with a very full cast, and it's exciting because this is going to be one of our PAX wrap-up episodes. First off, the man that you see down there, Errant Penman himself, as well as one of the content creators and moderators over at AshenFoundry.com. That would be Isarii.
Hello.
How are you, man?
I'm good. Good. Exhausted.
Good to see you back. Yeah. All right. The other man, the other gentleman down there, the amazing Atropos, the founder of the Tamriel Foundry and Ashen Foundry Network. So much stuff.
Thank you. Hey, folks. How's it going?
Thank you for coming back. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That face that you've seen before, and I just keep dragging him back. Sinbad, one of the leaders of Vengeance. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thank you very much for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. And the last guy that's on here, because he joined last, so he's on the bottom of the list over there on the side, just because. But he was on our last episode with just me and him. That is Telchar, leader of Sons of the Seven. How are you, sir?
Doing great. It's been a long 25-plus hour trip back from Seattle, but going strong.
Nice, nice. I know you were going crazy out at PAX, and I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that both you and Sinbad got to me. I know both Sinbad as well as Telchar, they were out on the floor at PAX, as well as Atropos and Isarii, but they were jealous and they didn't send me anything because they're mean. But both Telchar...
I picked up your ESO stuff.
That is true. He did.
I'm your IRL loot box provider.
That is true. That is very true. So,
Shame.
Atropos, you're the only one who didn't give me anything, so shame.
I've got some good pictures.
Okay.
I'll send some over.
All right, we'll work on that. But both Sinbad, he was awesome with getting us a lot of footage that we talked about early on, and Telchar was just going crazy, just getting everything working down there. So I really appreciate that from both of those guys. Awesome time. So we're all back. We're going to talk about PAX, but before we do, I have to give a shout out to a couple people from, our network side of stuff, especially Braden, the creator from the US, for leaving us a review on iTunes. I really do appreciate that, guys. It is something that if you do, head on over to, iTunes, look us up, leaving us a review. That really does help let people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes it's relevant. Not often, especially when I have this crew, but I'm just kidding. And also a shout out to Monaco from our guild as one of our newest patron supporters. You guys rock. Really, really appreciate that. All right, guys. It's time for the Phoenix Roundtable and the PAX West panel, Making MMOs Great Again. I want to see everyone's hat, by the way. I have Nice. Yeah, it's somewhere back there. All right. Good. Everyone else pointed it out. I see Atropos has it up and hanging on the shelf. Everyone else pulled it up, so that's awesome. I'm jealous. I don't have one for my bald head, but it's okay.
No, you're jealous.
I know. It sucks. It sucks. I live on the East Coast, and it was too much for me to go out to PAX. But that's okay. I had people out on the floor. All right, guys. So first off, on the bat, Alpha Zero announcement in December. 15th. I know this wasn't something that was really surprising to some of us here, but to others, I mean, it was nice to get a firm date. What do you guys think? Somebody. I don't care who. I know I normally call someone, I'm just throwing it out there.
I think it's good. They, definitely showed that they can deliver something in a time crunch kind of period. So 3 months from now, if they can deliver a playable, useful demo that allows people to give good feedback, QA to them. It'll be good for them to, start to actually get the hard part of the game made.
Yeah.
We can go into the kind of possible difficulties they'll have with getting quality QA, but that's a whole nother bag of marbles. So.
Right. Now, it's actually, I wanted to bring this up. One of the reasons why I want to bring it up was because Telchar managed to secure an interview spot for us with Steven, and that was on our last episode. But obviously, with quality issues and stuff, it was really hard. But I actually asked him this question and said, so Alpha Zero, what can we expect? And a lot of what was more or less, I'm going to paraphrase this because obviously a lot of people had a hard time hearing it. He was saying that what they're essentially going to do, Alpha Zero, at least at the very start, is going to consist of pretty much what they had at PAX, but we're going to start working on login and authentication servers from a remote source. So a lot of that's what's going to be Alpha Zero, as well as some other little things, probably classes and stuff that'll get fleshed out. But I mean, that's one of the big things that if you've ever worked with an indie MMO, I know I have several times. Asari, I know you have as well. First alpha test, can people log in? I think Atropos did the same thing. It's like, it's a 5-hour test, and most of it's us going, okay, everyone hit enter now. Make sure nope, you didn't get in? Okay, let's try this again. So I think people are going to be surprised. And I say surprised because people nowadays don't understand what alpha really is.
Yeah.
We get these Asian imports that they call alpha that you can buy into, which are technically finished games in Korea that just get sent over and localized. So people are like, well, it's a finished game except for the fact that, it's in Korean. It's like, no, it's a launched game that's being localized here.
Yeah, I think sort of in that vein, it's a little bit questionable that they've been giving out Alpha Zero access via raffle. I think there's legitimately a good reason that this is normally just a friends and family alpha,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I think keeping the Kickstarter backers to the Alpha 1 is smart, and that's probably where I would have done the raffles if I were them as well, because they're kind of going to have the unvetted, perhaps uninitiated masses coming in for a test that may just be a test of the login servers and having completely different expectations than that.
I think that...
True.
Go ahead.
Oh my God.
Jinx.
We're the worst. He's going to kick us off the podcast.
All right.
Well, I was going to say is
Sinbad
We're both
first.
done.
What I was going to say is that as far as the Friends and Family Alpha, I mean, they're already going to do that, so they may use that to kind of ensure people can log in from a remote standpoint. And then the Alpha Zero, it sounds, from what I've kind of been hearing rumors-wise, is from like the devs and whatnot, that one's probably going to last all the way until Alpha 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be just like basically polishing access to the server, polishing some of the playable content that they already have. And if you think about it, I mean, they've already shown off whole maps. I mean, the amount that they've been able to do at this point, I don't think they're going to have too much issue putting some of those in for people to just run through and test them.
Right.
Yeah. At the same time, I hope they don't feel like too much obligation to worry about the fun level this early on. I mean, like, at least I hope they're not like burning dev cycles to like, let's, make our arena experience that's like kind of canned, like more fun for the people that are in Alpha Zero at the expense of like more long-term deliverables. I don't think they will. I think they've been like really sensible with how they've prioritized so far, but Alpha Zero is not going to be very glamorous, I don't expect. I'm not currently in it, so, but we'll see. Yeah, I know. But I think for the folks that are, I hope there are some folks in there. I mean, I think the Ashes community in general is like relatively mature, pretty good group
I'll
of
be there,
folks.
don't worry.
And so I hope there'll be some good testers in there that'll have like a healthy perspective on what Intrepid needs to get out of sort of their first round of non-local testing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is, like you said, Sorry brought up a really good point. I mean, yeah, the raffle winner thing, if anyone, you can check the official forums. I think I was week 7 or something like that. I was one of the winners. Actually, it probably was, because it was
like the week. It was like the week you did the live stream with them. It
was.
Oh, this is so rigged.
Well, it was, because originally they were doing one random, one handpicked. And I was on the handpick. There were certain weeks where they handpicked people, and
Well, now I'm just hurt.
There's a reason why, and so there you go. But in that case, I agree. Like, Isarii and Atropos, I mean, and I'm not sure about Sinbad and Telchar. I don't know because I've only just kind of met you guys recently. But I've met Isarii and Atropos years ago, specifically with the ESO Alpha, and I know I've done earlier Alpha games like Dark Age of Camelot Alpha, which was that was way before. Yeah, that was not playable. And yeah, I mean, and I've done alphas with other indie studios as well, where literally that was what the alpha test was. Let's log into the server. Once you were in, you couldn't even move because if you moved, you overloaded the chat server or the log server, and then that would crash the entire server. Yeah, that stuff does happen. But you're right. Having random winners, people are going to hop in nowadays and go, this isn't playable because they're so inundated with what mass media calls alpha when it's not.
The early access culture is pretty strong.
Yeah. I think that the way that they intended this to be was to be like a marketing tool for them, because it basically created that hype. Like, oh, I've signed up for their website. I have a chance to win this key to be able to play earlier than everyone else. Yeah. And I think that was the main point behind it. But to Isarii's point, it's a double-edged sword for them. It's going to basically be interesting to see how they can corral all of our kind of like rowdy selves.
I mean, this is kind of the issue with. I know Isarii brought up people who Kickstarter backers who bought and can get into Alpha 1 and stuff like that. That's not necessarily great either, because some people have more money than sense. Someone who can have a ton of money and can buy into the earliest alpha doesn't mean they have any sort of technical experience. I'm not saying you need technical experience, but you need to be a good QA. You need to know how to submit bug reports.
I saw somebody asking how to get a refund on their Kickstarter backer after the pre-PAX combat footage on Reddit.
I've seen that too. Yeah. I don't.
No comment.
All right, I am going to comment on this. Let me comment on this. Okay. All right. When you are kickstarting a game or any product, you are not buying a game. You are buying a promise or an idea. You're buying into an idea of a game. You're buying into a dream to have something that you want. There's no guarantee that it's going to be exactly, what they, always say. I think it should, when you kickstart something, they should maintain within their goals or within their vision of what it's supposed to be. If they radically change the product, that's a little different. But expecting something, when you're kickstarting and going, oh, I deserve this or I deserve that, or it's not a game or whatever, you're not buying a game. You're buying a dream. And that's what you're doing. And I always tell people, if you're going to kickstart something, you never put in more. It's same with any investment. I mean, this isn't really an investment because you're not seeing returns, but unless you count it returns in fun, you never invest more than you're willing to lose. Same with gambling. If what you put in this is going to break the bank if I don't have it, maybe you shouldn't have done it, right?
What's the best thing y'all have kickstarted that has delivered?
It's actually my first game I ever kickstarted.
I've kickstarted pretty much every MMO that has ever went there almost. Honestly,
what's launched?
Delivered?
What have you backed that has launched?
Nothing.
Nothing has yet.
Nothing in MMO has launched from Kickstarter. Closest being Camelot Unchained and Crowfall.
Closest Camelot Unchained. Ouch.
Ooh. Well, hey, it could have been worse. I could have said Star Citizen. Oh, wait.
Do you remember that guy? Do you remember that guy that kickstarted his potato salad? I felt like my money was really well spent at that time.
I mean,
I did not actually give that guy money.
Honestly, MMOs are the only thing I like games that I really care about. I mean, there's some other stuff that have been kind of neat, and I've been looking at various things. But I mean, honestly, the amount of money that I've spent on certain things. Has it been brought back to me? No, not really. But at the same time, I'm seeing progress in a genre that I love that may have stagnated had I not thrown money at it.
And that's kind of the way I felt. Like I wanted to get the validation for my pledge by going to this event. So it's kind of one of those things. Like if I'm going to be spending all this time moving forward, trying to help build the community and stuff, I wanted to really see how they behaved as a team and how they had that interaction, as well as talk to the people that are getting my money in person, and I would never have given them that much if they hadn't had the way that the videos the way they were, and how heart to heart it has been, and then also just kind of their backgrounds too. So like if it's kind of like a weird situation for other stuff where it's really just here's the gameplay. You've never seen but one developer's PR face. That's it. You know, you don't really get to see like the whole team. And that was really the critical point for me, was to see, you know, should I keep continuing to put effort into this project with my personal time, more money, etc. And this event solidified that into like a full-time, let's go. So
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm with you on that. Like, you need to, and it's something I'll bring in here. The personality of the people is something that really attracted me. I mean, I'm not like I'm dating them or anything. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're into that. I don't know.
Actually, though, I know exactly what you mean, and what Telchar means. Is that was one of the things that I'm kind of planning to hit on when I finally write up my full thing on Ashen Foundry. Plug. But the social chemistry of the team, especially when you have the people on our MMORPG, which, as we all know, is the worst place on the internet.
Yep.
You know, going on and on. It's a scam. It's a scam. And actually, by the way, that has actually calmed down a ton since PAX. But you know, it was really good to get around them and just see how passionate everybody is, how well they get along together. And I think even if you weren't at PAX, you could definitely see that during the panel.
Yes, you could.
Just watching that, the social chemistry that these guys have is amazing, and you can't fake that. And
No.
It definitely inspired a lot of confidence for me, just being around the booth a little bit.
And I have to second that. Like, I got to talk to a lot of the devs there, and their enthusiasm for this game, their enthusiasm to continue working as hard as they've been working on it, really kind of reassured me as far as where I put my money. You know, like, I wouldn't have normally expected them to be there. I would have expected like some PR team to be there. Or some marketing team, you know, rather than them to actually be at the booth interacting with people running the booth themselves. You know, they truly are invested and completely 100% there for us, which is awesome. I didn't expect that from almost any dev team.
Right.
But they've definitely proven it.
It's definitely not a precedent for the people at expos to be the artists, the tech design, the main people working on it. That's definitely something that I think was a really kind of like shock to a lot of people, like especially like at the front. People would come up and be like, "I really like the art," and you know, who designed that? And it's like,
I drew that.
I did that. You know, like they're like, "I'll sign it for you." To like, there's a kind of thing. Like I did that. You know.
And Steven
like,
was
wow.
out there the entire time.
Yeah.
Which was again surprising to me, surprising to I think a lot of people.
Right.
And I actually wanted to say something. And then as I went to go say, I'm like, oh wait, is this under NDA or not? Anyway, but I actually am going to say something very. Sinbad and Telchar may know, but I really do appreciate, like, Steven actually does care, like, for feedback and stuff like that, because I've left some feedback for them about something that I don't remember if he shared, so I'm not actually going to be explicit about what it was, but just so I don't break any NDA. But I shared feedback that I didn't like something. I thought it was not what, they had showed us before, blah, blah, blah. Like, I thought it just didn't fit. And Steven took the time, what my feedback, went and actually made changes to this thing and started sending me personal messages on Discord going, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And I thought that,
Nice.
And during one of our PI meetings, remember when, again, he's like, hey, hold on, come on over here. And, and it was showing stuff to people that was specifically aimed at me to go, this is what it looks like. So yeah, I think that level of caring for the game, as well as taking feedback and whatnot, is something that is meant a lot to me. And I thought that was really cool that, he went out of his way to go, hey, hold on, before I show this to anyone else, what do you think about this? Like, this was your complaint. What are feedback? I'll say complaint. This was your feedback. And I thought, hey, that was good. We made changes based on that. What do you think? And I thought that was really awesome. Anyway, we spent a lot of time on how awesome the team is. Sorry, they are cool people. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next announcement that really came out. And this was something where I was kind of okay. Like, I guess after I started looking up his pedigree of what he was doing, it made me go, wow, he's done a lot. And I always mispronounce it. Sorry, how do you pronounce the name of the composer?
Bear McCreary.
There you go. Thank you.
McCreary.
I pronounce his last name wrong, so there we go. So he's been announced as the composer for Ashes of the Creation, which is exciting, but also kind of sad that we found out earlier that all the music they've been using has been stock music, and I mean that's not necessarily terrible, but I've kind of fell in love with a couple tracks, and now it doesn't matter.
I actually went up to them after the announcement. Even though I'd known about that one for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I had to ask him. I was like, one of my big complaints about a lot of modern soundtracks is that I think the Marvel movies are a really good example of this, and I'm pretty sure I actually used it at the time. I can't name the character theme for a single Marvel movie other than the Avengers theme. I don't even know if I'd recognize it if I heard it, to be honest. There's nothing memorable, nothing iconic, and I think that the placeholder music we've had has sort of become iconic, where you hear it instantly when you think of the game, you think of it, and I had it stuck in my head for the entire PAX weekend.
Yeah.
So my question was sort of what are you kind of shooting here? Something that sets the tone and is good background music but not distracting, or something more like the Elder Scrolls where you hear it and you immediately boom, that's what that is. Star Wars is the same way. And
Jurassic Park.
And I didn't say Lord of the Rings, by the way, but you know how Steven is. He has like a very specific vision of absolutely every aspect of this game in his mind. What he went off on reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings, where he's like, okay, so each race in each zone area is going to have its own, and he didn't use the word leitmotif, but it's each theme, and we're going to have all of these different elements built into the main theme of the, which I want to be very iconic, very memorable.
Yeah.
And I hope that's something that they're actually able to accomplish. I like the vision of the theme.
Yeah. I guess a really good question, something that it would be nice to ask, is the stock music that you picked. Did you pick it just because it was there, or is it something like the music that you're hoping that Bear creates is reminiscent, like shares a lot of the same musical themes? That's something that I would have been interested in, because I've listened to a couple things after finding out that Bear was doing. Like, he did the Walking Dead theme, which is iconic. I hear that, and I know Walking Dead, obviously. Some of the other shows I've not really watched, but I went and listened to the God of War one that he was been working on for God of War 4, and that's very Norse-like, and that's the kind of music that I like. And I thought it was fantastic. Like, his skills are definitely there, but nothing that I listened to outside of like The Walking Dead was something in my mind that was iconic, and maybe that's only because I've not been exposed to it. I don't know.
Yes, Steven was very, very passionately talking to me about a certain score from like a certain scene in Battlestar Galactica and how it makes him feel. And I feel like I should go watch that show so I can figure out what the hell he was talking about. But it sounded really great.
Yeah.
BSG is definitely the most iconic of what he's done. But I think the other thing that McCreary is really good at is he writes a lot. He produces like a lot of music. He's not the kind of guy that for like a single season of a TV show or for a single movie, it's like a soundtrack, a score that's maybe 8 or 10 tracks. Like his like TV series soundtracks are like 20 tracks long. So there's like lots of diversity, lots of like little themes. And I think that kind of fits a little bit into what they want to do with Ashes, because they want to have, different musical motifs for all the zones, all the races, all the interaction of those, racial zone pairings and things like that. And that means, there's going to be a lot of music that's required in order to deliver on that vision. So hopefully the fact that he's like pretty productive will be a good thing for the game.
To kind of jump off that, I'm not sure if this is part of the panel or after talks or maybe in the VIP area, but I don't think they'll mind talking about it. But they're saying that the one of the big things that Steven was trying to do is get him sold on the game idea too, like really because he's a gamer apparently too, and he is all in on the lore of the game, like what they've given to him, and like he wants it like hard. So like having that kind of associated like passion to it, and help building possibly a really strong IP for his name in gaming. Like the God of War is an established thing. Like it exists. God of War exists already. So and like I might play it someday kind of thing. It's it's like kind of like the target audience is limited. Hopefully, if Ashes does well, he'll get a very large showing of what he's capable of doing, and we can really see what his capacity for doing dynamic music systems and kind of the more stuff you'd expect to see from someone like Jeremy Soule or any of the other kind of dynamic composers out there that are doing a really good job these days. So
right. And
on the other hand, I would be happy if we just get like a Vanilla Ice moment from Bear McCreary where he's like, no, your beat goes da 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 da, and my beat goes da 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 da.
Wow, that was just awful. Anyway, a couple of things. First off, there's and this goes back to the human psyche here. There's two things that actually bring back memory the most, and it's actually oddly enough smell and music. Not just hearing, but music itself can actually incite memories and bring memories back to you. That's why music is something that's really important. Like, I specifically remember World of Warcraft, like this is years ago, when you walk into a zone and the music kicks on, you immediately know where you're at. I specifically remember going to pick up one of the expansions at a midnight release, and they somehow or another at the store played like the Stormwind theme. And as soon as it came on, I'm like, even though I was Horde, but still, I knew what it was. That kind of connection is something that really just is not, I wouldn't say necessary, but it really does bring a lot to the game. And I actually feel bad for people who leave the music off. I understand if you've been listening to it nonstop, but for like the very first time to get the experience, you got to have the sound on and the music on and stuff like that. But there's those scores, like you said, and it doesn't have to be massive. Like we hear the Elder Scrolls song. Anytime you hear that, you're like, Elder Scrolls. And actually, kind of a rabbit trail that kind of fits in here. When I found out Jeremy Soule didn't do the soundtrack for ESO, it kind of killed me a little bit inside. Yeah. And like their main theme that didn't have that iconic score, it lost a little bit with me. They actually went back and tried to add it in, but they didn't have that iconic score. And I'm like, well, now this doesn't even feel like an Elder Scrolls game, to be honest.
It was a big miss.
It was a big miss.
I think having the theme not make you think of an Elder Scrolls game perfectly fit the game.
Okay, that's not arguing here or there, but that burn, it hurt. Yeah. So much as like you set the world on fire, at least the upper northwest.
One of the real big things, like you can like zone music, if it's on loop, it gets boring, and I can understand why people don't like that. And like WoW and stuff, you get the same thing as Droll. It starts to happen over and over again. You experience the same stuff, but they've gotten some really good trigger-based, audio stuff for, diagenic, like spacing of audio and stuff. It depends on the audio engineers and how much time they want to spend on that. But you can have something as simple as, just kind of light and calm music when you're just kind of walking through the meadow. But then as soon as like you target, like there's like they have to predict like combat and stuff like that, or like kind of if you move into a certain like a wooded area that's kind of like evil presence or something, the music starts to shift, changes, does that kind of stuff. That's what they're working on, making it more like I was saying, dynamic, and that is what will really set the overall tone of the music for the game. If it's going to be a constant, always there kind of thing, or whenever you do a zone transition on loop.
I completely agree with you, Telchar. If you look at the series Game of Thrones, a lot of times they'll have their specific family themes come on when you see like a specific character come on the screen. Yeah. And it's like, that's their song. You associate that with them. And it like helps bring that mood, that feeling, that passion along with each character. Like especially when like Arya comes on the screen and she just killed like all the Freys or something, spoilers. Yeah. But as far as that goes, with this game, if they can accomplish that, if they can basically have those little intricacies in there, I think that would really help build the world, help complete it. So I have to completely agree with you on that.
The idea of theming is something that is important, and that's what you're more or less saying. Whenever you have a zone, and like I said with the loop, I get it. Like music needs to be there, but it can't be so overwhelming that's all you hear. It almost needs to be something that's in the back of your mind. But they do it all the time in movies. If you ever watched a movie where they stripped out the music soundtrack, it is not the same experience because they use music to convey emotion or convey, like, you walk in and all of a sudden the suspenseful music goes on. You're like, oh, something is going on here. If you ever watched a scary movie where they stripped out the ominous music, it's completely different.
Go watch Interstellar without music. It's terrible.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, it's like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, even something like simple like Star Trek with that dun, dun, but if you just strip it out, you're like, okay, something's floating through space. I get it. All right. Anyway, all right, we spent some time on music. We got to move on. They went in and started doing some Q&A stuff as well, which we wanted to pick out a couple interesting questions and have some discussion that we thought was kind of neat. Obviously, some of them were duds, which is to be expected from a Q&A session that allowed anyone in who've obviously maybe not even seen the game before. So I'm going to...
sorry for giving the mic to the wrong...
Yeah, sorry.
I got us the world name.
Oh, that's true. That was you.
Did you also get us Miss Antisocial?
Actually, no, she was in the standing.
Okay, all right.
I would have taken it away.
You just literally ripped it out of her hand. Nope, you're done. Out. You've had enough. Anyway, so anyone who's watching this show obviously is already following from the Ashes. Obviously, you're following us, but Ashes of Creation. So we're going to skip some of the stuff that doesn't really matter too much. But one of the things that they brought up, and I know we've talked about it before, but we've talked about it on a meta level, and they've kind of confirmed here, is someone was asking about the degree of soulbound equipment, how much it'll be featured. And I was really pleased to see that it's not going to be featured much at all, hardly at all. I'm assuming if there's some sort of like legendary item you've taken 1 million years to create, maybe that'll be soulbound. But the main way they're working on the economy is that it's going to be for items that, all items are going to be about transferable goods. And I know that's something for me is good for economy. Asari, Mr. Economist.
No, that's Atropos. But
I've been usurped.
Very, very different fields. But no, I like economies generally that don't feature a lot of soulbound items, but that does also mean that you have to have decay pretty much. I feel like you end up with one or the other where you don't want items to exist forever and just be traded around. So we already know we have decay, so lack of soulbinding sounds good. Soulbinding sounds good to me. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Past tense, future tense, who knows? Atropos.
Yeah. Yep.
Just yep. That's why you've been usurped.
Yeah, that's why I've been usurped. No, I think it's good.
Tables have turned.
I guess most games' ability to generate new items far exceeds the ability for those items to be taken out of circulation. So, I mean, I'm interested to see how they balance the rate of decay on stuff and also the probability of losing equipment if you die while corrupted. I mean, that's, I guess, another place. Although my understanding is that gear gets dropped, so it's not like it's gone. It's like the person who kills you can pick it up. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think I feel like maybe the option to soulbind equipment, like if you know that you intend to use it for a long time, like you can voluntarily soulbind the equipment, and that has some benefit as far as like maybe it doesn't decay as fast, maybe the equipment degradation is slowed if you like voluntarily soulbind something. But sort of forcibly soulbinding drops, I'm not a big fan of that because it takes away from a lot of the economic intrigue. So yeah.
Here's something fun that I thought would be kind of neat. Voluntary, temporary soul binding, okay? And think of it as an insurance policy. You can pay gold to soul bind for a period of time where then it will not drop off your character. Doesn't remove the decay, it just means you can't drop it off your character. So if you're willing to spend the insurance money on items, you can buy a writ of insurance, which could even be player-driven for all I care.
What about a more fun take on that system where instead of it being a writ of insurance, it's a writ of booby trapping?
Person who grabs it gets a curse. If this comes off,
if you equip it, you die.
You can curse your item that if the person equips it, it like lowers their stats by like 50% while they're holding it.
Keep summoning raid bosses to kill them.
Then you have trolls who just go out and kill things until they drop an item and the person picks it up.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That'd be a good way to sabotage the bounty hunters.
True.
Post-death revenge is the only way Isarii can win in PvP.
Oh.
Ouch.
Someone's feeling a little bit of compensation for being usurped earlier, so he's coming at you hard at this point.
Although it is funny, you know, I uploaded that GIF to Discord just the other day of me walking off a cliff during World v World at Guild Wars 2, and then Zimriel came down to res me, and she's like 1 meter, about this far out of his projectile range, and he jumps off a cliff to shoot her and then dies. So I did that. I did that. Yeah,
Totally
maybe that
me.
is my thing.
So you're saying you're the guy who lays on the battlefield, pretends to be dead, and when they get close up to him, you roll around and stab him.
No, I'm really dedicated. I actually die.
Yeah, I actually die. Booby trap my body. Telchar, what about you, sir? What are your thoughts?
So, I am a fan of open economies, especially for high-end items. They're going to need to balance the decay mechanic to certain tiers need to never be like actual chance for them to be destroyed in a true sense. They need to be like turned into fragments or something like that allows the crafters of the master craftsmen to reforge that item. Possibly they could take, you know, it might break into its base components or something like that, but it never loses that unique, like basically it's like, oh, we'll just take it back. And if we've given these base fragment components, reforge the item, and then it has this new durability or whatever, the guy takes his cut for the reforging. Or that unique piece of the legendary item that was, let's say it's the Heart of the Dragon from the Tier 6 event that popped or whatever, like it's a breastplate or something, like the item breaks, that person chose to make a breastplate out of it. When that item has the decay cycle after a certain, you know, period of time or through use, it breaks. They can take it to the event, the guy, and have it fix that item, or they can use it in a different recipe. That's their choice. They could say, well, I don't want to use this in a breastplate anymore. I want to make a shield. So they'll take it to a shield master, and he can do the process of making it into that. So it's more about the unique identity of the core piece, and then that makes up the greater component parts of the legendaries and uniques to make them be kind of not so stale, right? Because like otherwise, you know, if it's a timer or if it's a reclaimed effect, they'd be kind of annoying, right? Like I don't know if I'd want that to just like, oh, I spent all this time getting this one thing and then got it, and now I know I only have 60 days to play with it before it gets recalled to the world. Like, whoops, like
Yeah.
So it's kind of anti-gamer to me.
And, I mean, like I don't say lore-wise, but it's something like obviously almost all of us, especially Sinbad, who dropped the Game of Thrones spoiler, you know, obviously played Game of Thrones. You have the idea of reworking the Valyrian steel in that show, where only 3 people in Westeros were able to actually do such a thing, right? Bringing that into a game perspective. With the idea of crafters being able to craft like those special items and needing to take certain paths or whatever and make these specialists, having to find the right player who have put enough time and effort into their craft that they may actually be able to do that. You know, otherwise you're just holding on to it because you can't get, no other crafter can touch it. Their skill level's not high enough. They didn't take the right specializations, whatever the case may be. That does crafting gear, yeah.
Special crafting station in your house. Like you can definitely make people commit if you really want to.
And I think you should. I think crafting, just like, what was your favorite game?
Star Wars Galaxy.
Yeah, people actually had to commit to being a crafter, where it was something you did. Like there wasn't something you did on the side. It was that's all you did.
You literally could not do combat, and there were no alts allowed on the server.
Yeah.
Nope.
Other than buying a whole other account. But that level of commitment, I honestly think there should be a level of, like, if you are a master swordsmith or blacksmith or whatever, and you really get in there, you need to, you know, obviously just like player choice, there needs to be a give and take. There can't be, I can do everything myself. It's, this is what I do. And it's, no one else can do this. Like, if Isarii just wants to be a blacksmith, let's just say he can do a bunch of different stuff. Like, okay, he can do everything fairly well. I'm a master swordsmith. I give up crafting certain things. Like, I can't do certain things anymore because I'm solely focused on one thing. That creates that level of diversity that, you know, makes specialists, makes people...
Crowfall is going for, I think, maybe a happy middle ground besides, you know, just making it so that you can only craft. But I'm going to oversimplify here, but let's say you have 3 talent trees. You have to choose the crafting as one of them if you're, wanting to be really, really good at it.
Yep.
I think that's a good balance because it's something that you have to invest in. It's permanent-ish, semi-permanent, and it limits your combat ability in some way. So you can't just be. Not everybody's going to do that, basically.
Right.
Well, from what it sounds like they've kind of been leaning towards is that you'll have 2 separate fields of ability. You'll have the combat ability, and then you'll also have like a artisan ability. But for the artisan ability, you can basically choose to kind of be like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Or you can also specialize and then specialize even further on like what type of item like, you're going to basically work on.
Yeah,
so like
I mean,
you
at
could be
that
a
point, though,
swordsmith.
that's just basically the shit every MMO says right before they're coming out.
Yeah,
I mean, we have no idea what that's going to mean. I think having like an entirely separate artisan progression is a step in the wrong direction. The expected direction, by the way. They haven't been trying to sell us on how great their crafting system is going to be, but not promising if we're actually wanting crafters to be able to really differentiate themselves from the rest of the herd.
I don't think there's necessarily a need, though, to limit it to basically not having that access to PvP content, because then you're basically just creating an alt.
You have
specifically
access
for
to
that
it.
alone.
Yes, that's the idea. But you I mean, it's not like you wouldn't have access to PvP content, especially if crafting takes you out into areas where PvP is enabled, which in this game is basically everywhere. As we know, you drop gathering materials, you have to go get them. But it makes you give something up. It makes being a crafter part of your identity and not just this other thing that you do.
Right.
That doesn't sound to me like based on anything that we know that Ashes is going to do, though, right? I mean,
yeah, no, that's what I said. It's what was expected. It's the they haven't been hyping up on like we're going to have this great crafting system, but
it's kind of
not
implied though. In
since
I don't
we are
want to
talking
say
about crafters being able to differentiate themselves and stand out as the #1 blacksmith in the world. Making you give up something to be that guy is essential, and otherwise everybody's going to be the same.
But can I do want to throw in here the idea of the economy that they need to do something above just what some games do for crafting. If crafting is going to be such a major part of the economy, if everyone can just craft their own stuff anyway, where is the importance? You know what I mean? Like,
So, I was talking to people, talking to devs about this, I guess, and so this is a little leak, I guess, not really, but they're kind of trying to use the artificial scarcity through the world's interactions to help drive the crafting environment. Like, you may be able to make the stuff, but the chance of you actually getting your hands on it is going to be so small that it's more going to be based around the event scarcity than the player's ability to do it. So, like, for example, like we were talking about earlier, like a legendary, the Heart of the Dragon drops or whatever, like tier 6 node pops, that happens once per Metropolis, and then if it de-levels, it can happen again, kind of thing. So, like, you got to think about the number of times that might happen within a year, right? So, like, let's say you have a really crazy active server. That might be, like, maybe 10 times a year. Like,
actually, I think it's less than that, just based on the fact they said Metropolis, after it's been sieged or whatever once, it goes on cooldown for what, like, almost 2 months? I think
like 60 days, yeah. So if you have 5 of them all sieging 60 days, you could get 10 effectively. You know, and that's the chances of that happening is probably nothing. I don't think you'll see that much flux, right? So like those super high end items like that may just be so rare. Like you're the master swordsmith or whatever, they can do it, but the chance of you actually stumbling upon that or being the person that they bring it to recraft it, that's where we could add that layer of specialization. Perhaps they might
it's not the specialization at that point. To me, this sounds like a slightly even more extreme version of the WoW model. Everybody and anybody can master their craft as far as the system allows you to master it, but it's not. It's your ability to go into Icecrown and get the rare recipe, and then get the resource that drops from the Lich King that makes you special, and that's something, but it's combat focused, and it's not really a craftsman's ability or anybody focusing on being a craftsman that makes them stand apart. It's their combat proficiency once again.
So how does that play into the widgetization thing that they brought up? Because like they said that you're going to be able to tune the dials and stuff when you're making the items, and there may be a secret process to overpower, like, push it beyond 100% to make it possibly get extra stats and stuff like that. That's hidden recipes. That is a mental thing versus a game specialization.
Like a crafting mini game, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that they've mentioned, is basically some of the raids or some of the larger world events will yield recipes that, you as a crafter, you might have a unique recipe that only you have, and then you can continue to build these items. So that could really set you apart from all the other ones out there that can do the same thing.
Meltdown. Yeah, the meltdown of the items, you can then recraft it,
Yeah.
I feel like one thing they might do, and to make a reference that Telchar will appreciate, as I learned he's an avid Path of Exile player over the weekend. Maybe they can get the widgetization aspect while simultaneously having like actual player expertise matter by making a crafting process where there is a degree of randomization, but knowing how the system works means that if you are a really dedicated crafter, you just sort of know how to play the crafting game better.
Yeah.
Like, the fundamental randomization and chance of like what you can create, that brings, a random element where, maybe you make a super overpowered sword, or maybe you have a really good sword that you end up just totally bricking and it becomes like worthless. Knowing how the probabilities work and like what is the best path to take to give you the best chance of success, that's what would like differentiate a superior player crafter.
I think the internet has made reliance on player knowledge as a differentiator a failed experiment. There will be an API tool or just some sort of database system that
they can do it like this. So like this, like, have you played Path Isarii?
Nope.
You haven't? Okay, so like there's a lot of little tiny things you got to pay attention to in that game with the crafting steps to make the really, really end game stuff. And especially if we go into that breakdown, the decay mechanic, where it may have been like at one point this like amazingly awesome sword, and some people might not want to actually, unless there's a timer on it, like they may just be like, this thing is like top tier 99.99% perfect. We're never going to use it because we don't want to lose it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like if it's a randomization chance that you can't reattain just because it's like, well, the guy happened to just roll it and get it, versus a slight tweak or like, some kind of like maybe even shifting reagents, like, it's a seasonal thing or like it's a location thing, that there's a lot of under requirements. Like you have to take it to the God Forge at this specific time of day and have this buff on you and all these little hidden little things like that. The complexity of that gets way too complicated for people like going on a wiki. They're going to be like, how to craft Thunder Fury. It's like,
right,
boom, huge list, and then they have to go get all those pieces, and they have to do all that stuff, and by then they can always tweak, they can change the environment for it to make it different.
Hey, so. You might have you played Guild Wars 2?
Yeah.
Have you seen the crafting tools available for that game?
I know.
Sorry. You played Star Wars Galaxies, right? Do you remember the progression path to become a Jedi before they nerfed everything?
Yeah.
You could have something similar to that for some of the master crafters. That way it's got almost like this god level like that you have to achieve to basically just be able to create these master weapons. So that way it's not as easy as just following a wiki. It's not as easy as just following instructions. You have to actually progress over time and basically actually doing things in the game to do it.
And there was a lot of randomness that factored into that as well, which was...
All right. We're not going to let Isarii continue on his Star Wars Galaxy. Sorry. We actually have to keep moving on this crafting thing because we're literally one question in.
One question in. So, to what extent is soulbound equipment featured?
One question in. We're actually only going to hit a couple, like 2 or 3 more questions from this, and then we're actually we have some other stuff planned for the next episode. So we'll
My
do that.
body is ready for this next one anyway.
All right, but yeah, I'm going to bring it up because I can't just avoid it and pretend I didn't see it or hear it. But so we had a young lady take the stand. I hear conflicting results. I think Isarii gave her the mic, so blame him.
I did not.
That said that, what do you have for solo player? Like, and more or less, she said she's completely antisocial. To which my first thought was, why are you playing an MMO?
Yeah. The exact quote was, "I'm antisocial online. I don't want to play with other players online." And like, you can play MMOs that way, but don't demand that they cater to that. That's their defining feature. I don't go to Burger King and say I don't want to eat burgers. Jesus.
Now I'm gonna have to edit that. Thanks, Isarii.
Oh yeah, clean podcast.
Thanks a lot. I have to write that down. Anyway, all right. So obviously, there's going to be events that people can do that don't necessarily require full groups and just have solo players. But why are you playing an MMO if you don't like playing with other people? Go play something else. Like, I hate to be that candid about it, but I mean, frankly, it's people like you that ruin MMOs. I'm just saying. I'll come out and say it. There. People like that ruined MMOs. I'm sorry, we're all adults. We all grow up. I have a kid. You know, you find the time to play. You don't get to do. I don't get to raid 12 hours a day like I used to. I accept that.
I don't get to do all I used to do either.
Yeah, you accept it, and you find what you can do with the time that you have, and that's how things are.
One other thing, because this kind of spiraled into a big casual versus hardcore discussion, I think, amongst some people. Was it the Saga of Leucemia guys who constantly bring this up? Being social in a social game is not a hardcore versus casual thing. It's what the game is about. It has nothing to do with how often you're online or how much time you have to dedicate to it or the degree of seriousness with which you approach gaming. It's just how you play it. It's like saying using a hotbar is a hardcore thing to do. That's just the way the game is. Anyway, I don't want to spend my whole
we're not going to spend the entire time on it.
That much longer but an individual person. I feel bad about it, but
no, yeah, I don't. Okay, I get you, ma'am. You don't have the time, but not everything has to be around you. I'm the same way. I work a full shift. I do DCN related stuff, which eats up more of my free time that could be used for gaming than I care to admit. But I still work around.
It's the defining feature of the genre.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you strip out the MMO, like the social aspect, you don't have an MMO. You have Dragon Age Inquisition, which is a good game, but it's solo. You know,
I mean, games like this, the player agency and the civilizations versus civilization is a key cornerstone to it. You can't have the pandering to the people that don't want to interact with the possible depredations that come in like that and service the people that want that stuff to happen. It's a conflicting idea. So
yeah,
I mean, you can try to provide experiences and content for people, but if they're going to get upset that they might lose their stuff when the passing group of raiders comes by and they just do not want it to be the hermit, if the hermit gets killed, like that's what happens. Like,
yeah, it does. Yeah. And I mean, that leads up to the next thing about player loss with the whole idea of, and I'm actually it's funny they didn't bring up when we talk about our Soulbound, they didn't talk about item degradation, because I'm sure that would have been like, what? I lose my items? Like, that's not something people nowadays, I shouldn't say people nowadays, a certain generation of people actually, you know, I want to say this because actually it's funny, the idea of this, I can't lose anything, is purely a more adult thing. I actually heard a person talk about this. They said they watched their child play Minecraft. They're like 4 or 5 year old child play Minecraft. And on like hardcore mode, you die, you lose everything. And the kid doesn't care. He picks right back. Oh, okay, whatever. He got killed and he goes right back. Like, the idea of I can't lose anything doesn't happen until later. And and that's why games like this feel like so stagnant. People are like, wow, I really, when I first got into MMOs, I thought this was going to be like a living, breathing world kind of stuff. Well, It would be if you didn't allow, you didn't require your safe place, that no one can touch me in here. Yeah. And I've heard people say, well, I don't like PvP, so I'm going to center myself around this. We're going to create like a non-PvP area. It'll be great. That's not going to happen in Ashes. You can be PvP'd anywhere.
Mm-hmm. My guild would be one of the first, like, just straight up raiding those guys. Like, oh, you're all here without the will to fight? Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. That's okay. We'll just execute this. It's no longer a fight, guys. It's an execution. It's fine.
Exactly.
it's that mentality that has ruined MMOs. It really has. I need to have my safe place. No one can touch me. I don't want to lose anything. There
needs to be a safe place somewhere in the world, because griefers do happen. Like that does become a thing.
I'm fine with like the starting area.
Starter zone only, like a quadrant of area around that. But that also means you can't have your own freehold there. Like there's no, you're not going to get to have the maximum output of the land, and it's going to have the tier 1 littlest minerals and stuff. So like if you want to go and farm your cabbages on the community plot, go farm your cabbages on the community plot, but you're never going to get anything like in game,
Well, think about it, EVE Online for something. You have your high sec space, which is which you can get PvP'd in, apparently, I think.
You can.
But it's much harder. There will be areas like that, but there's obviously a risk versus reward. You're not going to be making bank in EVE by playing in high sec. It's going out into the low sec pirate areas where all the rich stuff is.
And there's also just a lot lower risk in Ashes of Creation across the board.
Yeah. But the idea of I can be safe, like I'm fine with the beginning area. Like you said, people need to get acclimated to the game for a little bit. Even if there's something like newbie protection, like up to, okay, let's say the max level is 50. I don't care. I don't even care if it's up to 40. Like up to 40, people can't PK you unless you like attack. Whatever. They're low level. What are they going to do? Maybe that's in
my... how it was in like WoW for like the flag zones didn't start until you're like level 30 or so. The starting areas, unless you attack them, you're good. You can just watch them, so. Yeah,
there can be that level of protection for new players until they get used to the game, but at some time you got to take the training wheels off, okay? You can't be on a tricycle forever.
Yeah. I mean, they already have a good system in place anyways for that, which is the whole, corruption system. Basically, if you go around just killing new players, you're going to get corrupt. You won't be as effective as fighting, and some bounty hunter is going to come take your stuff.
Yep.
So, there's consequences, and I think that's truly what most people don't realize is so important, is that there has to be consequences in the world, because without it, it's meaningless. There's no point. Like, where is the point in like holding on all this stuff if you can't lose it? It's basically like the guy that's super rich but has no friends. Yeah. Like you have no one to share that stuff with. You have no meaning behind it. Actually, one of my favorite game series is Dark Souls, and for me, the whole point behind that game series is you risk everything when you're moving through it, and you can lose all of your souls if you don't, retrieve them again after a bonfire. So I think they're going the right path with this.
I seem to remember that somebody wrote an article on a website called Ashen Foundry where they mentioned Dark Souls.
I did, yeah, it's true, I did.
Shout out to Atropos. You see what I did there?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's funny you mentioned that, and we'll be talking about that shortly. Okay, we got a few more questions that I really wanted to hit from this before we end this particular episode. Just FYI, our next episode is going to be our PAX recap with all these gentlemen and what they've been doing. And a few of the questions we are going to skip because I don't want to... I think it would take away from that discussion because we're going to hit that very heavily. Asking about alts is something whatever, but something that was kind of interesting for me was when they talked about being locked into a class. And as of right now, they pretty much said that they're kind of leaning towards the primary class being fixed and the secondary class being able to change. We kind of knew that ahead of time. But I know Isarii and I, we're big fans of Final Fantasy 11 and 14. They allow your character literally can switch jobs at will and everything has their own progression path. They have mentioned that already.
I also like the cat girls.
Okay, that's neither here nor there, and that's a personal problem. But the idea of personal progression per class is something that I'm really fond of. I like switching a subclass is just like an augment, which they've already said before, and it saves those progression paths. But changing your primary is something I kind of hope they look at, because that is a progression level on a character level that will keep people playing for a while if you can level up all the classes, even if it's not as easy. Just something to cool.
I see. We just have these conversations pre-podcast, so you can steal my points.
Go ahead, Isarii. No,
I'm just usually
you and I share the same thought process on 90% of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So
no, that I just thought that was funny. Yeah, what you just said. No, I think that's a lot of gameplay hours for people who will go into the game and then work on completely filling out that horizontal progression that's not creating problems by being endless vertical progression. I think it's a really good system that there's really no reason not to allow people to do it, in my opinion. It's not like you'll be using them at the same time.
No.
It's It just lets people who don't like alts, completely get everything they want on one character. Alternatively, I would like there to be no alts at all and no main class and only one main class. I would be happy with either of those options.
Wait, say that you said just you pick one per server, main class. That's it.
That's it.
I just kind of hate alts. I feel like I like this will never happen, so we don't really need to spend time on this. But I like the idea of people thinking of themselves as like their character role, like I am the tank, and that is the only thing I am.
That would be a cool server mode. Like launch one later, like a couple years down the road, like have a thing you have one character and that's it. You can't.
That was something I really enjoyed about older modes when they either heavily discouraged alts through things like account locks, which they said there wouldn't be, or although I don't necessarily like attunements specifically, they just functioned this way, or they just straight up didn't let you have alts. I feel like those were good for having players identify with their role in the greater community and their guild, as opposed to this current situation where you're like, I have every character leveled all the way up in WoW, and I can bring whichever one for the raid that we need.
It also... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, if you look at the old days of, like, EverQuest 2 and, like, Vanilla WoW and stuff, like, to get to, like, a high-level progression, it's an insane amount of playtime. Like, we're talking, like, 100-plus days of playtime per character to get them to the, even, like, medium core raid gear, like, back then. It's not easy. Just the leveling process alone, 1 to 60, was, like, 40 days. Like, 20 if you're fast and you have twink gear, but, like, 40 days for a new player is a pretty decent amount of time, and that's a long time for that. That we're not even talking about the amount of times for, like, the raid progression stuff, like people learning how to fight, how to do their rotations, the gear progression, all that kind of stuff. So personally, I never really got into the alt stuff in the old WoW and the old games like that because there's not enough time for it. If you're a hardcore raider or a hardcore PvPer, you don't have time for that. You might be able to do it on the side, but you'll never be able to get it to all be like maxed gear. There's no way. It's impossible because that slot gets used for, like, unless you have multiple hands and feet that you can play multiple games and raids at the same time, there's just not enough time in the day. Like, it's a limitation of just the realistic gaming time. So it's made you focus on your character more, and, like, especially with the single shard servers like this, if you develop a renown for what you do, like, especially if you're like a really well-known ganker or PvPer, people will recognize you, and that becomes your identity, and you can embrace it with games like this. Like, if that's just how people are. It's fun to...
I remember, I had my one friend who played a tank, and I met him because he played a tank.
Yeah.
And I wanted to continue to know tanks, so I put him on my friends list. And that's why we kept hanging out. It was Bubba LaRuth the tank. Nice. I don't really get that anymore. I don't know. I think it's because so many people, I still have my friends, but it's like Facius is a good example when we were playing WoW from Tamriel Foundry as well. He's got everything. He's got everything on one character even. I don't know. I like it when people take pride in their role.
Mm-hmm.
At the risk of being a little bit contrarian and never being invited back to Aggelos' podcast, I would say I'm actually personally not a fan of the ability to have that horizontal progression across multiple classes.
Get off my show. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm done.
I guess that's kind of what the rest of us have been saying for the last couple of minutes.
Are you saying that you guys sort of came around to...
Well... I'm saying I guess I like two extremes on the end. It's either let us all do it on one class,
or don't let us. Yeah,
or don't let us do it at all.
Yeah.
I'm more of the. I was supporting more of like an efficacy of actually getting to experience the full content with one, like with the alternate characters. Like, it's just if it's that difficult to equip the guy and get him to that maximum maxed out min-max thing, it's not worth you can't do it. It's impossible. You'll lose out. You'll fall behind because you've dropped your time. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So.
I actually agree with Telchar on that. I think that you can have alts, but you should limit it by how difficult it is to level and to maintain that character. And I don't quite agree with Isarii as far as, or for yourself, Aggelos, as far as like being able to do everything on one single character. Mainly because the progression paths for each of those things, I feel like that'd be a little too easy to do, and it would end up having the same problem as just having an alt. You're basically just creating all of that on one character instead.
Yeah, but why not have the option if you don't want to have an alt? Yeah. I mean, what's the difference of me just creating a brand new character and naming it Aggelos 2? The fact is, I don't want to get off of Aggelos. I don't want to be Aggelos 2.
My main point is it's just how difficult it is.
Yeah,
it should be very difficult either way.
I think it should be difficult regardless. I don't think you should be able to switch easily. I think it should be an investment. Even if you can switch your main class, make it something like you have to do a big quest that takes a while, or have a monetary investment, something where you're not going, okay, I'll switch and then I'll come back to the raid. It's something like, okay, do I really want to switch? Because it's going to take me a week's worth of work to switch over.
So basically, we fundamentally disagree with the question asker again.
Whatever.
This was, I think very obviously sort of an artifact weapon question from WoW, where they're like, Legion came out and I couldn't play a billion alts anymore, and I didn't like that. And I understand that. That's not like the other one where I'm like, wrong game.
No, it's not. Because
I liked that Legion did that, I guess.
Well, that's because you and I play one character, sorry. It didn't affect us. The altaholics are the people it affected.
One of the things that I was going to bring up...
It did affect you on your alt specs.
Well, that's true, it did.
So, they've definitely encouraged, people being, spies and stuff, too. So, alts are required for that to happen unless you have multiple accounts, which is another way of doing that, and people will always game it no matter what. They may have side accounts to do their skullduggery, or whatever you want to call it, just to go and be the guy. But my thoughts on alts in general for this game is that if you've experienced the world with your character of choice, you might want to see if the guys want to go and try a different server as their alts, because the environment will be possibly entirely different, especially if you go and read up what's happened on different servers. Some might have a really healthy economy, really good PvE experience. Some might be more just constant raiders everywhere fighting, and you might want to go try that, So it's just kind of you get to go have a different flavor of world for the alt situation. I would even be willing to do character transfers, but you don't get to bring your gear with you. You come as a leveled character, you pop out naked on the other side, nothing. You literally blanket over there. Yeah, so you don't have to do the leveling process again, but you still get...
Now we're on the love cast.
The love cast. Right. That's a good point. I think that's a good ending point, too. And I like that point you brought up, Telchar, the fact that you're right. Servers are different. So if you did prevent alts on a server for whatever reason, by creating an alt, you are seeing a different story, because you'll be on a different server that could have taken entirely different progression paths. All right, guys, this is going to be...
Wait. We did forget things.
Well, we have a couple things.
We want to talk about those... I think alchemy. Well,
we're going to fit that in the next episode, because I don't think there's going to be enough discussion on that, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, calm down. We're good. All right.
Coming up next week.
No, seriously. Next week we'll have these guys on here again, and we are going to continue talking about the PAX experience. And we specifically left out a couple questions because they would pretty much answer what we were going to talk about anyway next. So stay tuned. All right, guys. We've reached the point where you guys get to give your shout outs. Let's go ahead and start with Isarii.
I do things on the internet.
How subdued.
I know. Okay. Moving on. Go ahead. No, are you serious? Is that all you're going to say?
Okay, fine. If you want to find everything, go to errantpenman.com or twitter.com/Ethan McPhee.
Okay.
There you go.
He's tired.
Atropos, it's your turn, man. Go nuts. Do better than Isarii.
Thank you, sir. Well, you can find me on our brand new, relatively new Ashes of Creation community site, Ashen Foundry. I really hope you guys will check it out, and thank you so much to anyone who's already registered. We're starting to have some really good discussion on the site. It's a really great place to post your content, videos, articles, guides, YouTubes, reviews, whatever you do. Please stop by, please share it. And if you want to read more about what I thought about PAX, having played the game a lot there, you can read all about it at ashenfoundry.com.
He's got a solid week's worth of reading for you. That one review.
All right, Sinbad.
And later this week we will have some Ashes of Creation swag from PAX to give away, so stay tuned for that.
You know, everyone here brought something for me from PAX, and you didn't, Atropos. So,
well, I can nudge the giveaway odds ever so slightly in your favor, Aggelos.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Might be fixed. No, I'm just kidding. He's not good. I just had to give a hard time because everyone else got me something from PAX or helped work with me, and Atropos is the only one who was selfish and didn't. So that's how it goes. Thank you, Atropos. All right, Sinbad, how about you?
It's all soulbound.
All right.
Man, sorry.
All right. Well, I'm Sinbad. I'm one of the leaders of Vengeance. We're an Ashes of Creation exclusive guild focused on PvX and RP. We're planning to be one of the best guilds on our server. We're going to work hard to dominate our server together. And we plan to have a lot of the world's first. So we'll be one of the ones trying really hard to do that and trying hard to accomplish that. You can actually find us at vengeanceaoc.com, or you can go to our Discord and find us there as well.
I will have links to both of their guild stuff in the channel, like I do all the time for when they're on my show. And Telchar.
So I'm the guild leader of Sons of the Seven. We're a PvX exclusive Ashes of Creation guild. It's focused on the political and economic side of the game. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to go to every single con that they go to and, provide a lot of quality feedback. And if y'all are interested in kind of following that, I'm sure I'll be talking with these guys more as we get closer and closer to more of those kind of events, as well as when we get more gameplay sometime next year. We'll be able to start kind of sharing that and doing a lot of really good community feedback with that. So
Excellent.
You also have to go just to show off your extremely cool shirts. They are like they look really awesome in the black lights as well.
They did look good.
Yeah. Booth. Yeah.
Yeah, they did look good.
That is not a joke.
I made sure to get a lot of back time with the
yeah.
Nice
on the stream. So like anyone that's watching saw it on the stream, now you know who it is. So yeah.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Aggelos, AGGELOS_WOF. You can follow everything we do at DungeonCrawlerNetwork.com. There's links to all of our social media, but if you want me to spell it out, you can find us Facebook.com, Twitch.tv, Patreon.com/DungeonCrawlerNetwork, as well as our Twitter account for this show, which is Ash's Podcast, our Dungeon Crawl Net for the whole network as itself. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you in Ashes of Creation. See you later, everybody.
Bye.